rando questions come up as well. So see how it goes.
All right. Yep, I hit the button. I went ahead and hit it. So let me go ahead and turn that music off so YouTube doesn't decide to say, "Oh, you're listening to copyrighted material there, buddy."
Yeah, we're gonna have to strike your ass or
Yeah.
shut your YouTube channel down.
Oh yeah, they.
And and we're live.
Yes,
And
sir.
we're
We
live.
are.
Well,
Yeah.
thanks for the heads up there, guy.
It's did. I was like, there's like 1 minute left, and it's like, oh, we really. I can't wait that 1 minute. I just went ahead and did it.
Yeah, thanks for the heads up. So, before let's get this show on the road. So, how about we go ahead and do the introductions for anybody who's new to the channel?
Absolutely.
In your own time, mate. That was your cue.
Oh man, I missed the cue on stage. I didn't walk out. I missed the tape on the floor.
God damn it!
Yeah.
People
Okay,
are
let's shut this down, and we'll do it live. We'll do it live. Oh, so what's up what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the channel. We are going to look into the events leading up to April the 8th when Kurt Cobain's body was found, and then we're going to start looking into some of Courtney's connections to the case. We're going to kind of walk back a few months. We'll probably start around the overdose that Kurt had in Rome, and we'll kind of walk forward from there. It's going to be one of these things where when I read it the first time, I said to myself, and why wasn't this fully investigated? There is no such thing as just a mountain of coincidence. I don't believe, anyways. But we'll go ahead and just jump in and get started. It was March the 4th. Nirvana was playing a European tour, and some of the reviews from the tour, they were very hot and very cold, and you could visibly see that Kurt wasn't the same guy that he was just a few years prior. You could see that he was a reluctant superstar. He was he had all this internal conflict about the whole quote unquote rock star thing and the whole scene at that time. So,
and this was at the height of indie pop as well, wasn't it? This was like,
oh yeah.
All these bands that were becoming household names, and then Nirvana cropped up as a they kind of were a bit out of the realms of the norm of that kind of genre.
Yeah. And then Kurt also had a problem with other bands who were, for the lack of a better term, he would call them, they were faking the Seattle sound, the scene. He had real problems with the guys from Pearl Jam. They went back and forth in the media against each other quite a bit. Alice in Chains, another band that Kurt would bring up from time to time. Hey JFK, what's going on? And hello Crossroads. Welcome to the stream. We're just getting started, so nobody's really missed anything. But yeah, that was the whole music scene was shifting that time, and the world of music put that onto that band's shoulders. And Kurt didn't want you to figure him out. And if you watched any behind the music documentaries or just sniffed around, anything with the band at the time, everybody's kind of heard the story of his upbringing. His mother and father divorced when he was young, lived with his mom for a while, lived with his dad for a while, didn't really have the wholesome child white picket fence experience, even though that's what he wanted. He said that several times. But He was a bit rebellious, definitely rebellious against his father. His father wanted him to be sort of the American jock kid. Wrestle team, baseball, football, wanted to do all this. And Kurt liked to listen to his aunt's Beatles records. And he had this little drum that he got when he was a kid. So he was all the time, they said, walking around playing that drum. But yeah, he had that sort of upbringing. Then got in his high school days, got into the punk rock um, sort of scene, I guess you would call it. It's Aberdeen, Washington, very small logging town. But believe it or not, there were other quite large bands that came out of Aberdeen. And one influential to Kurt was the Melvins, and Buzz Osborne, the lead singer of that. But how Kurt became, Kurt was an active addict. If we're going to start with Rome, what happened there is now we're going to go all the way up to, this is March 4th of 1994, and Nirvana was doing their European leg of the tour for In Utero. Kurt did not want to do the tour, period. He was dead set against it. He had just got an opportunity to the band to play Lollapalooza of that year as the headlining act for a boatload of money, which he didn't want to do. Courtney wanted him to do it. Obviously, because of what happened, the Smashing Pumpkins got the bill instead of Nirvana on that. But so we're in March of '94. While they were in Rome, Kurt has an overdose. Now, the thing with the Rome overdose is it's been claimed that he had 50 Rohypnol pills pumped out of his stomach with champagne.
Wow.
They're Rohypnol, of course, being the date rape drug, and it was legal at the time in Europe to get that just over the counter. I think it's a highly controlled substance today, but at the time you could go over there and go into a chemist shop and get the Rohypnol pills. And so that's what Courtney claimed he had in his system. There's been doctors come out not wanting to put their names to it, but saying that's not what was pumped out of his stomach. But at that time, he also had wrote a note to Courtney that he wasn't happy with their marital situation and intended to divorce her pretty soon. He didn't say, I'm going to divorce you right now. He just let her know that it was unhappy. And Courtney claimed that was a suicide note, and we'll get in more of that later about that particular note. So they wrap the tour. The tour gets canceled at that point. He has the overdose. He stays in the hospital over there for a while. Okay, release. So they come back home. It wasn't very long after that when they got home toward the end of March that Courtney put together an intervention, and the intervention did not go well at all. Kurt was very upset. Most of the people in that room Kurt was shooting heroin with, and he thought it was very, how could you sit there and let me buy you heroin and shoot it, and now you're telling me that I need help? So the intervention ended with him and Pat Schmier going into the basement to play music and get high. So that's how that particular intervention went. Yeah, go ahead.
So it was based on that. I mean, I'm just looking at it from a almost sounds like she was very controlling in a sense, like she was
Absolutely.
You could almost call it domestic abuse in a sense.
I'm so glad you said that. I was going to bring this up later.
Okay.
When you said domestic abuse, there had been at least 3 different times between 93 and 94 that King County had to send either sheriffs or firemen to the Cobain house. And one of those times was when Courtney called and said, Kurt's locked himself in a closet with a gun. He's going to kill himself. Well, the police get there, and Kurt was really cooperative. He didn't fight with him. He comes out, hands him the weapon, and says, "Well, the reason I went in the closet was not to hurt myself. It was to get away from her." And
Right.
he told a story about her and him get into an argument, and he was trying to get away from her. So it's interesting that you said that, because that was, Courtney was going to make it to the top, whether it was her own, lack of a better word, talent, or she was going to sleep her way there, one or the other. I mean, she, obviously with her string of men after Kurt, even before Kurt, she was bouncing around between Billy Corgan and some of the guys from Nine Inch Nails. Eventually, she worked way all the way up to Trent Reznor, but she knew in her mind, she had this plan that she was going to get to the top one way or another. And boy, did she hit the mother load as far as the rocket ship to the top.
Yeah, I mean this was also on the apex of Nirvana's rise to fame as well. They
Yeah,
were,
yeah,
they were sellout concerts. They were number one hit singles. So yeah, I mean she may have struck it rich
oh yeah,
with marrying Kurt, but she sounds very much like one of those dominating kind of women who will, for lack of a better term, try and ground their partner down to do whatever they want, in a
yes.
sense.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's always been rumors. He obviously didn't confirm it, but Courtney's always
Mm.
talked about the song "Heart Shaped Box." Kurt wrote that about Courtney. She takes it in another light, that the song was about his love of her private areas and this and that. But when I
Mm.
hear it, I hear something completely different. I hear a man who is going through some domestic vice grips, and to me that song sounds very spiteful, but it's always up to the user. But yeah, you're right. They Nevermind had came out in 92 and absolutely rocket shipped. I remember when it came out, I went and got the cassette. I had obviously didn't hear, I never heard punk or a version of punk up until
Mm.
and then, and I'm not saying never mind is punk, because it's far from it, but I wasn't introduced to that world. But that tape, that tape changed so much.
Yeah, it's a very it's kind well, for lack of a better term, it's Nirvana's very sort of emo kind of trend. So unless you're in that kind of mix, then you're not going to really be familiar with it.
Right. Oh,
But
hey, sorry. Hey, Bill. I just want to say hi to you. Sorry, brother.
Bill Hill, sorry, Bill. Um, yeah, I mean, this is the thing though with a lot of bands like Nirvana, unless you're mainstream, you're not going to really know who they are. So Nirvana probably, I think a couple of other bands at the time. I can't. Don't ask me to name names right now. I can't really think straight. Um, but unless they were mainstream, you're not going to really know any of the other sort of the subgenre of emo. Um, so Bill just said bastards.
Yeah.
Thanks, Bill. Appreciate that, man.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. It was just so it was so it changed my musical list. Of course, I was also a teenager struggling to find my place as well. I mean, so it kind of spoke to that. But yeah, so they have this intervention toward the end of March, and of course, it initially doesn't go well, but eventually Kurt says, "Okay, yes, I'm going to go into rehab," and then he picks the Exodus Center in Los Angeles. And around that time, Courtney said she was going to go to rehab too. But what Courtney's definition of rehab is a floor of a hotel that they cater to celebrity types, and they bring them women and men to enjoy, and oh, you can have your drugs delivered to you. So I don't really call that rehab, more than I call it just a bender hotel. But Kurt was there in the facility, and on March 31st of 94, Kurt decides he's had enough. He's done here. So he jumps the wall, goes to the airport, buys a ticket back home to Seattle. And lo and behold, who sits next to him on the plane but Duff McKagan from Guns N' Roses. And
Wow.
Duff, and Duff, he says him and Kurt had a little conversation. Said he knew, he could tell Kurt was going through something, and didn't know him that well, but they had a conversation. But Duff did mention that he invited Kurt out to his house, and how different things could have been if Kurt would have took that serious. But sitting next to Duff on the plane ride home. So now we're in that 1st of April range. So Kurt gets back home to Seattle, and on the 2nd of April, him and his friend Dylan Boyd go to a sporting goods store in the area, and Kurt decides he needs to buy a shotgun and some shotgun shells. And he bought a Remington Model 11 shotgun. It was a 20 gauge, but he didn't put it in his name. He had it put in Dylan's name because of the aforementioned arrest that Kurt had, where they took his guns away when they came out there. So that was sort of the reason why he had Dylan go with him. Now, Dylan, for those who might not know who Dylan was, Dylan is when you get in the drug game, you get all these friends, and Dylan was a drug friend of Kurt's. They went and got together, they shot together, they got high together a lot. So Dylan, even to this day, is sort of a straggler musician between Seattle and Los Angeles. He'll go back and forth, but now we're in Seattle. Kurt's bought the shotgun. Excuse me. Now, there's been other eyewitness statements that have him at a couple of locations around town. There's a hotel that he would frequent often, and he would put it under the name of Bill Bigsley, which is Axl Rose's real name. So when he'd get a hotel, he would use Axl Rose's real name as the person who was in the room. So I thought that's kind of a jab at Guns N' Roses because of their little their funny history together. They didn't too much care for each other, but.
Oh right, I get it. So he was using Axl Rose's real name as an alias.
Yep.
And why not?
Yeah, exactly. And so, I
mean, it's one way to keep under the radar as well from paparazzi.
I
suppose.
Yeah. And so that we're up to April the 2nd. So fast forward, now we are going to go back and fill in the 2nd to the 8th. But the 8th was the morning where Vecca electrical employee, they were called out to the house to do a job, to add some security lights to their, they had a greenhouse above a garage. And Kurt had told the guy at the sporting goods store the reason why he's buying the shotgun in the first place was he had some burglars. He had some people trying to break in his home, and he was buying it for protection. Some friends have also come out and said that Kurt was kind of paranoid around this time of burglars and the things of that nature. But so they had hired Vecca Electrical to come out to add some security lights around the outside of the greenhouse. And so the security guy comes up and notices Kurt laying on the floor. At first he thought he was asleep, but then he noticed some blood coming out of Kurt's ear. At that point, he calls 911. And then, as you do, after he called 911, he called into a local radio station to see if he could win free concert tickets for telling that radio station the news first. It's kind of, I mean, they've got the recording of it out there. It's kind of funny to hear that DJ react, going through the different emotions when that guy is hearing that. what's this guy talking about?
Yeah, that's not something some ordinary guy would think of doing. You know,
Yeah,
your best friend is lying in a pool of blood, and the first thought that comes to your mind is, "Oh, I better just ring that radio station, see if I can win some tickets." What?
yeah. So here's
Wow.
we already we're going to start getting into some. We're going to start talking about these police reports, and there is a lot of inconsistencies and lies that Detective Tom Grant found. Tom Grant was hired by Courtney Love the week before they found Kurt passed away. He was hired by Courtney to try to find him. Kurt had went missing, or Courtney could not pin Kurt down. So first thing she did was file a police report under Kurt's mother's name as to a missing person. So
Okay.
yeah. See, and I'm not sure what the point is there of doing it that way, but that's what she did. She said she was Wendy O'Connor, and that she was filing over her son. So she started dialing. That was Easter weekend in '94. So she started dialing numbers in the yellow pages, and lo and behold, Tom Grant was at work. He answered the phone, and so she hired Tom to quote unquote find Kurt. So a lot of the information we have about this has come from Detective Grant, and he has felt all along this wasn't what it is on the surface, and was able to dig more. So they get there. They say that there was a stool pressed up against the door to keep it locked. It turns out there was no stool against the doors. There was a stool in the room that was in front of some planters. But again, none of this stuff has went back and has been retracted or amended on any of these reports. So they get in, they find him there. On the reports, they say his body was laying there, his possessions were all in this neat little pile, and that he had pulled his driver's license out and had it sitting there, and he was laying there, had the gun on his chest, and he shot himself in the head. And so they immediately start making statements right then and there that it was a suicide. As far as the police and detectives on scene, this was like your street cops at that point. They're saying, okay, this is a suicide. We're going to handle it as a suicide. They take some pictures that wasn't developed until 2014, but that's something to talk about later. But so they take some pictures. They get the coroner's office in there. They get his body out on the scene. We're going to take a look here at the scene. I'm going to share my picture. Sorry, guys, I'm still a little slow with the screen swapping apparatus here, but I do have some shots here I want to show you guys of the scene. So of course they came in and they obviously tried to block anyone, because there was a hill behind that house that you could actually stand on and see right down inside of the greenhouse. So
while you've got this photo open, I just wanted to mention, just in case anyone's not aware. So while the detectives were taking these crime scene photos, they were using 35mm film and a Polaroid camera.
yes,
So they've got two sets of photographs from two sets of cameras. And some of these photos, actually, no, I won't say any more. We'll come to that in a minute. But so I just wanted to throw that out there for our viewers.
all right. No, thank you for doing that,
Yeah.
because I get so wrapped and excited to go to the next thing. But okay, so there's the greenhouse, that photo there, and this is the pile. We're going to go to we're going to show the possessions here that is listed, how he had them quote unquote stacked for them. yes, the towel. I tried to desaturate the towel because that is a certain fluid that I don't want YouTube to.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can ascertain what that
Yeah.
is.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I wanted to be very careful about that one, but there we go. Um, inside, there's the cigar box there. The cigar box had his heroin kit in it: needle, spoon, cotton ball, lighter. Um, he had $120 in cash in his wallet and another $63 in his jacket. That towel they claim he brought in there so they would not have to quote unquote clean up a big mess. There's a hat, a pair of sunglasses, a pack of American Spirit cigarettes with his wallet. And as you see, his ID is pulled out right there. But I do want to make one thing clear. The cops are the one who pulled his ID out. There is on record, there is a cop who has made that very clear that he did pull that ID out. So another small discrepancy, but let alone it is a discrepancy.
Mm.
Okay, we're gonna take
It's
another.
probably not enough of a big discrepancy to to call into doubt any evidence. But
Right.
I think what looking at it from an objective point of view, the officer or detective who did that was probably trying to show the photographer this is the ID belonging to the
Yes.
victim.
There
But
you go.
you see, nowadays you can't do that because that's tampering with evidence.
Yes. And very, very good
Oh,
point. Now, I'm not going to show the photos of his body, just out of respect to him and the respect to YouTube and you guys. I think we've all, if we have that weird have to see thing, I'm sure we've all seen that picture plenty of times. So I'm going to refrain from showing that, but I am going to show the suicide letter, or the what they called the suicide letter, and how it was in a planter box with a pen shoved inside of it. So there we have the letter, how they claim he wrote it and then jabbed the ink pen down inside of it, and that was inside of that planter box that you guys seen in one of the first pictures that was standing behind the two guys there. But yeah,
right.
there's the note, and we're going to definitely whose hand was up in the corner? JFK. It's a good question. Hold on a second, bud. I'm sorry. Oh well, you sorry about that, JFK. Yeah, that I did not notice that his hand was up in the corner of that photo. I'm sorry. That was Kurt's hand. I apologize, guys. We won't show that picture anymore. I was trying to show the way the evidence was laid out on the floor there, and that was in fact Kurt's hand in the corner of that picture. So sorry about that. Good catch, JFK. Thanks. I won't. I won't show that picture again. And now to show you guys a better look at the planner the note was actually found in. Well, there's that one. I'm sorry. I wish StreamYard had a way you could preload all of this, and then you wouldn't have to fumble around while you're going live.
Actually, yes, you can. There's an option called slides. So if you look on the bottom of your StreamYard's tools where it says like mute and stuff, there is one
Gotcha.
that says presets, but I've never used that, so I don't know how effective that is.
Gotcha. All right.
But yeah, it's a learning experience for both of us, man.
Gotcha. So, and there is the entrance to the greenhouse right there. And the planter that the note was in was opposite side of this one right here. Both sides had the sort of greenhousey type material there to obviously let the sun in for the plants. And you can kind of see like you'd fill that basin up with dirt and then plant. But anyways, so that there we go with the scene. I've actually got some reports pulled up here that we can go into, but um, basically from the get go, Sergeant Cameron of King County Police Department made it very clear that the orders that he gave out was, any investigation that we do here is just for show, basically. And oh my gosh, I have the okay. It was, excuse me. His orders to the homicide unit was to go in and investigate. It was quote unquote just for show and to not be too thorough. That was his exact orders to homicide detectives. So they come in, they get the body, they take it off.
Interesting that he would, as first responders, you don't say, oh, just have a look around, don't do anything really major, and then we'll just leave. And wow, the 90s, exactly. Crazy.
Oh yeah, there's a Courtney connection to every hand, every in-person in department that was involved in that morning with King County. Courtney did have a friendship with, and we're going to get first person we're actually going to get into is the I'm going to get his full name here. Nikolai Hartston. He was King County's the Seattle medical director. He was the one that was going to do the autopsy. He was the one who took possession of the body as soon as it left the greenhouse. Now, Nicholas Hartston passed away not too long after this in a paragliding accident. And so this is a theme that's going to come up a lot with the people who were involved with this investigation is they're no longer breathing. But Nicholas Hartston, his history with Courtney goes back to the 80s, excuse me, before he became the medical examiner for Seattle. He promoted rock and punk bands in Los Angeles and Seattle. He also, in the late 80s, early 90s, actually promoted Nirvana. So he was well engrossed in that community. He knew the people. He did have a personal relationship with Courtney. The thing with Nicholas Hartston is he made a declaration of suicide before the toxicology reports were returned, which that's not the way an investigation works. I mean, nowadays when we see people who pass away under mysterious circumstances and we're waiting on autopsy, it's always that 6-week wait or 4-week wait now to when we get the toxicology report back. He was a known drug user. That wasn't a hidden fact. So for him to make that statement on day one that was the cause of death, the ink wasn't even. I mean, he immediately boom. That's what it was. That did not have the full toxicology report. Didn't have any, I should say. Excuse me. So that in his connection with Courtney, that's a little more worrying. The more and more that rolls around in my brain, it's he shouldn't have even been on the case. That's a conflict of interest. By all means, Seattle had a narcotics detective, and if you Google his name, you can see this guy's reputation was not sterling by no means. His name was Detective Terry. He worked the narcotics division in Seattle. He was involved in the death investigation because obviously there were drugs involved, but he had a very, very friendly relationship with Courtney on the grounds of Courtney had helped Detective Terry on more than 4 occasions, giving him names of known drug sellers in her little world. It's known that if Courtney got mad at you, you would probably expect a visit from Detective Terry. She would give the name over, rat the guy out. And so they even weirder is that the week that Kurt was missing, those were in the early days of those car phones. Courtney was making calls to Detective Terry from her own private PI's car phone while he would be in the store getting gas, using the restroom. She had made calls to Detective Terry from that phone while they were supposedly supposed to be looking for Kurt because they went out to this lake house that they had owned. But so you have that connection with it all goes back to Courtney. And then let's just pull the Band-Aid off right now and talk about El Duce. El Duce he is part of a horror rock group, sort of kind of G.G. Allenish, I guess, if you would call it, maybe not as hardcore as that. So in the documentary film that Kurt and Courtney was the name of it. This guy, El Duce, made the statement that Courtney Love contacted him about offering her old man for $50,000. He said he declined the offer because his band was about to go on tour, but also gave over the name of the guy who, quote unquote, did do it. And that's his words. A guy by the name of Alan Wrench. Obviously, that's not his real name, but he's another known horror rock artist. And he likes to drive around a fancy Lexus in his $50,000 recording studio that he owns. So those two names, they're known entities out there. Alan Wrench plays it up big time on social. Well, not so much anymore, but he used to play it up big time when people would try to interview him. He would be real coy and give double entendre answers to the questions and all this. So that, I mean, obviously when you have two people that are out there kind of pushing that narrative, it does kind of that smoke and the fire effect on that. But the thing with El Duce is he has taken a couple of lie detector tests. One, he failed because they claim he was so high that he couldn't stay awake during it. But a second one, he passed. So there you go. That's where it is with El Duce. Now, El Duce lost his life not too long after that documentary came out, that his head was separated from his body due to a train. And believe it or not, Alan Wrench was there the night El Duce lost his life and was one of the last ones to have talked to him before that happened. So this is a recurring thing here. These people that are either directly or indirectly involved with Kurt's death passing on. So now we get back to the Dr. Hartston has done his examination, come out and said, hey, it was a suicide. I did not see anything that I believe was foul play on this, is what he told the Baltimore Sun. But that was before the toxicology reports came back, which when they came back, Kurt had 1.52 milligrams per liter of morphine in his blood. And to give you an example of numbers, the highest number of a overdose that someone has survived is 0.128. So Kurt had well over any possible realm of consciousness in his bloodstream than what it takes to actually cross that line into the from the living into the dead. But yeah, he had a lot of and any kind of drug you shoot that's an opiate, most of them, when it gets passed through the liver, it shows up as morphine in the blood. So yeah, he had a 1.
Well, it's sorry to interrupt you there, dude, but I did some research on this because it was one of the for me personally, with the manner in which Kurt died, I just found it interesting the level of morphine in his system. Now, it's pretty common knowledge that Kurt was a prolific drug user,
Yeah.
and I think it's safe to say, given his proclivities, he could have potentially developed, and it's also a medical fact that you can develop a tolerance to morphine. And based on my research, I found that a person with a high tolerance can have up to 2 milligrams of morphine in their bloodstream before that becomes a serious overdose factor.
Yeah.
And plus, if there's any other opioids in his system that can interact with those with that particular drug, that can cause issue as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there as well. You know, I mean,
Absolutely.
he wasn't exactly an occasional user, or even
Sure.
a moderate to light user.
Yes.
So the fact that the toxicology report brought that up as whether they included that as a contributing factor, is, I mean, I didn't find anything on that as such, and I was looking at the autopsy report.
Yes.
I really wish I hadn't, but there you
Yeah.
go. Because there's some details I'm never going to get out of my brain.
Yes.
But given the high dosage of morphine in his bloodstream, I personally don't believe that, based on his tolerances, that that was a deciding factor in his cause of death. I
Okay.
mean, obviously you're showing a picture there. We know what the cause of death is, but
Sure.
when you're looking at toxicology, you're looking for other factors that may have led up to the cause of death.
Yes.
So yeah, is it possible that maybe his tolerances were not that high, and the morphine killed him before the blast?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
So sorry.
And
Yes.
no. Great. That's a great interjection. Now, the thing with Kurt's death, and there is a large community that are just 100% believe that Courtney had this done. Courtney was worried that Kurt was going to leave her, and she's going to lose all this. He's going to take her name off of the wheel, and she's not going to have anything left, and this and that. And I'm not in that community. I'm in a community, I guess, or I'm on this little island, I think, out in the middle between the official story and that story, where I believe that there was a lot of incompetence in the investigation. I believe they got on scene. They obviously summed it up. Now, another part of this that I wasn't going to go too deep into, but I did want to make aware, is the Seattle Police Department at that time were facing quite a few kind of public scandals. You had cops that were taking bribes. Even the chief had to resign over a bribery scandal. I think it was, evidence being taken out of the locker. There was some cocaine that was taken out, and the sheriff didn't eliminate or didn't fire the guy, and it just turned into this big deal. So there is signs of I'm trying to think of the right word. And it's not, I don't mean incompetence, but I mean there's signs of insubordinate activity going on there in the Seattle Police Department at that time. So it's sort of known especially through locals at that time that lived there, how the Seattle Police Department works. So I think I haven't actually made my mind up. I'm not feeling it's one way or this way. I sort of think that something more went on to this that is, it seems like there's some cover
Yeah,
here.
yeah. I totally get where you're coming from. I mean, obviously, with a lot of contributing factors, with corruption within
Yeah,
the police force, with the close relationship between the medical examiner and Courtney and
yeah,
her relationship with other parties, it
yeah,
does cast a lot of shadow of doubt over the whole
yeah,
conduct of that of the initial investigation.
yeah,
So with for all intents and purposes, you're quite right to be approaching it from a skeptical point of view
mhm,
on not uh, and let me just clarify, when I say skeptical, I don't mean, well, clearly there's shady shit that's gone on.
sure,
It's, you know the best way to really sort of approach it is to be completely objective,
yes.
and very clinical about the whole thing, and just go wherever the evidence takes you.
There you go. That's it. Tom Grant. Bill's not too far off of this. I'm not. I don't want to jump in and publicly claim a nut job, but he latched onto that and he went in that direction. And he, the thing with Tom Grant is, I believe he believes that he's right on this. It's kind of one of those things. But I
Hmm.
believe that, like I said, I sort of on this middle ways. Even if Tom is fully correct on this, or if I'm right, or whatever, I believe that it's an injustice to just say, well, it is what it is on that. We're going to move on. I mean, he could be, take away the music, take away the fame. He still would deserve a look into it. But now
Yeah.
I brought the picture of the gun up, and I did that because I wanted everybody to see the actual length on this thing. It's not a small shotgun by no means.
And
And
that's a Remington 12 gauge
yep,
shotgun.
a Remington Model 11 12 gauge shotgun.
Right.
Excuse me,
Okay.
20 gauge,
Oh, 20 gauge. My bad.
20 gauge shotgun. Yeah, no, that is it. Another thing with the shotgun is, if you notice where the shell ejector point is, let me zoom in on that picture, and there's a reason I'm bringing that up. Let
Yeah,
me.
that's not a pump action shotgun, is it?
Uh, I don't think so. No, because we see the shells will eject out right there.
Oh, it's one. It's we in the UK we call them farmers' guns.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
are the ones that have a latch that the shell cartridge is placed into the back of the barrel
yep.
rather
And
than loaded underneath.
um, the thing with this one is the location where the spent shells are is opposite of the side of the ejector.
Yes,
So
that's
where his body was laid, the way he was holding the gun, and of course he had a very very, they call it a death grip on the gun, but the shells were laying the opposite side of where they should have been if he fired in the position that they say he fired in. Um, which I thought, hey, things could bounce around, and they could. I get it, but if you try to follow the official narrative of this is where he was when this happened, this is exactly how he did it.
well, the cartridge. If I'm correct, if he's holding the weapon with the butt of the rifle on the floor, away from him,
Mhm.
the cartridge would have ejected to his left.
Yes.
So that the only way it could have landed to his right is if it did bounce off a piece of furniture, or and then catapulted to the opposite
Uh-huh.
side. But I haven't seen any of the photos. I didn't want to look at them, if I'm being totally honest.
I get it.
There are certain images that I don't need help with, and
Right. Yep.
Um, so my research hasn't been as in depth as yours. So I commend you for that. That's you've put quite a lot of time into this. I've only done a preliminary sort of glance at documentation, and see, I've not even seen this. So this is a completely new to me as well. So
All right.
um,
Hey, that's another reason why I was going to have Bill in here, because I was going to ask him that very question about with his experience with firearms, if he thought that was plausible for the shell to end up on the other side, because now we have a sort of a diagram of what the scene was. I'm going to try to make it just a little bigger. It's not a very high def image, but yeah, there we go. Let me get that off there. Okay.
right.
So as the pictures we seen earlier, we seen the doors, we seen the planners. We have the note in the planner box right there. There is the infamous stool, and they still have it up against the door. But we seen the picture. We seen where the stool actually was over here, more where that's at. Of course, we done seen the photo with the cigar box, the wallet, and whatnot right there.
Right,
So,
I can't see your mouse cursor on the screen, so I've no idea where you're
oh my gosh, let me
hovering
go.
now.
I'm so sorry. There we go.
It's all, there we go.
There we
Now I
go.
can
There
see
we
you.
go. Okay. So this image has the stool up against the door. We seen the photo where the stool actually was over in this area. There's the doors
Yeah,
we seen from the picture I showed you guys earlier, and then we
right.
seen that's where the two detectives were standing in front of. So there's the cigar box, the wallet, and whatnot. It was right there. His body was here, and the shotgun was in this direction, laying from foot. The butt of the shotgun was at toward the feet, and of course the barrel toward the head. This can of root beer, we want to talk about that in just one second, but they found some cigarette butts here. The spent shotgun shell. As we seen the gun, you would think the shotgun shell would have been spent in this area, considering the side that the shells come out of, but they found them here. This was, of course, the bag of shotgun shells, and he had a jacket here.
Wait, so does that mean then that he was essentially holding the shotgun upside down?
Yeah, they're saying that he pulled it with his that he reached down and hit it with his other hand. He put the barrel
So
up.
he would have held it with his right hand, if I
Yep.
remember rightly.
Yep.
So if he was holding the shotgun essentially where the trigger's pointing up,
Mm-hmm.
that would put the ejection cartridge to the right of the body.
It should have been here, but they found it way over here.
That's an odd angle to hold a shotgun.
Yeah, yeah, and as we seen in that picture, it's not a short shotgun by no means.
Yeah,
it's a very very long, awkward sort of to hold like that shotgun. And he used a birdshot, so his head wasn't. Courtney has come out in interviews saying that it was just a mess, and the only way they could tell it was him was through the driver's license that he laid out. But no, he used a birdshot, and there was a exit hole, and most of the head was still intact. And of course, in the autopsy, you'll see that that's what it said. It's not, to the point where you couldn't identify. It was very clearly still him. You still see his face. but yeah, so he used a very low powered shell, uh, or that was what was loaded into the gun, I should say. And then the note was found up here in the planter's box, and of course, as you can see, there was the cigarette butts here. Um, there's been some contention about the French doors being locked. And how could somebody else be in the room if the way they were locked? But the way these French doors locked from is you could lock them on your way out the door.
Okay.
So that really isn't a leg to stand on for, I believe, either side. But what has been a mystery for a long time was this can of Bart's root beer that Kurt had brought into the greenhouse with him that morning. So, his body was found on the 8th, but they determined that it was actually he did it on the 5th. So his body had been there for 3 days in the greenhouse before it was discovered. So there has been a lot of people, like I said, they've been wondering about the root beer can. So turns out that they did, in fact, do a test of the liquid inside of the root beer can. And when I say a test, it's not just around the rim of the root beer can, DNA, this or that. They actually analyzed the contents of the root beer can, and the root beer was laced with high levels of Valium. Yeah,
Okay. I did not know that.
and I don't know. I was an active addict for a very long time, and I have never known. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility. I'm just saying I have never known another addict dissolve their medicine in soda first before we did ingested the medicine, because I was always under the impression of your body would metabolize it different if it was already broke down into a liquid like that. So that may be, I may be way off on that one, and that might be like a thing that certain people do when they take their pills. They drop it in, let it dissolve, and then drink it up. But the root beer can was laced with Valium.
Okay. Did any reports say how potent the amount of Valium is was within the drink? Because
Well, I need to get those exact numbers. You're right.
I mean, it's interesting to note that if you're let's say hypothetically that you're looking to stage a suicide, and your intended victim is unaware that there's any kind of medicines or drugs in the drink, you wouldn't want to make it apparent to that person unless they're used to taking Valium that way. They might not really notice. But if you're innocently drinking a can of root beer and there's an unusual aroma or an unusual aftertaste, because I can imagine Valium
Oh yeah.
is a very bitter tasting pill. And you may be one of these kind of people that will take a soft drink to help swallow the tablets down. But
Mm.
if there's a lot of Valium in that can, I can't imagine someone like Kurt, who's probably used to injecting drugs and maybe snorting drugs.
Yes.
I don't know how prolific he was in the manners in which he did a lot of his drugs. So, but if he was a prolific pill popper, then yes, I could imagine he'd be like, oh, yes, it's drugs in me can, that's fine, and chugging away like it's a Friday night pill party. But
Yeah.
if there's a small quantity of Valium that he may not be unaware of, he may not be aware of, then by all accounts, that is evidence alone of foul
Oh,
play.
Hey, I'm getting an
Right,
important phone
yeah, I
call.
heard your phone ring. Go on, go
I'll
on.
let you get it.
I'll hold the fort. So, I mean, I have, I have no experience on these kind of things, but I just find it quite unusual that to lace your root beer with these kind of drugs. And Valium is a downer. Um, you know, so it's quite. I just find it quite interesting that uh, that seems to have been. Um, maybe the police at the time just assumed that because he was based on the drugs that was found at the scene, that was just a another method to help him make that final decision. But it's from an objective point of view, if you were to stage a crime scene, you, you certainly wouldn't leave that kind of evidence lying around unless you weren't really thinking of it in those terms. But
Okay.
hey, Sam Clinton 2.0 is in the
All
chat.
right. What's
Hey
going on,
Sam, how are
Sam?
you doing, buddy? So if you wanna catch up to where we are at the moment, I suggest you rewind an hour. But by all means, if you want to stay and listen to the rest of the stream, it's all good. It's all good, bro.
Yep.
So yeah, so sorry, I was kind of rambling a bit about this can. I
Yes.
mean, how much of the contents was still in the can?
I don't have that number, and I feel embarrassed because I have everything else wrote down here. Uh,
Right. Okay. No,
but
you should be prepared for these kind of questions, man.
yeah, I know. I
Just in
know.
case.
Yeah. It was actually
So,
to give a shout out. I know there's kind of a few people in here, but there is a channel that goes by the name American Spy Fox, and he actually
okay.
made the trip to Seattle and talked to Gary, Kurt's uncle, and a lot of this sort of newer stuff kind of came from that interview. He actually got
Oh,
to
okay.
hold the investigative packet from Gary that they made Gary pay for, by the way. But yeah, they and that's when we found out that the contents exactly were investigated, because for years it's been speculated. Well, could somebody had put rohypnol in that root beer can and got Kurt
Hmm.
loopy and then shot heroin into his neck?
Hmm.
Again, that was something that came out of the kind of the far Tom Grant ish side of that. But another thing that just popped into my mind is not only that is the shotgun, the shells,
Hmm.
the can, and a few other pieces. No, since they treated this like um, a suicide, they didn't dust for prints right away. So they waited a very long time before anything got dusted. Apparently, the shotgun had four places on it, but out of all four of those, no prints was able to live. Kurt's prints weren't on them. Dylan's prints weren't on them. Courtney's weren't. And El Duce's prints weren't on it. They could not get a reasonable print pulled. Uh, and people kind of say, hey, well, that's because you didn't take it into the lab to get dusted, until all this time later.
Right.
Um, to get on to it, but I do have the autopsy report pulled up here, and I think now that we actually have it, it's something good. And also, Tom Grant did leave a little letter to readers, and there is some interesting things in that letter where he kind of starts his about some of the outside things with Courtney, but we put a letter in there. I've always said, as far back as the mid 90s, there will be nothing. And now I can say there is nothing in the autopsy report that cannot be duplicated by a staged suicide. In fact, there is something in the report that indicates probable collusion to perpetrate a deliberate lie by the medical staff at the King County Medical Examiner's office. And there you go. That's where I am. I believe that there is something. Now, I'm not saying that it's a staged suicide. They were all in collusion to rip Kurt's money off and all this other stuff, but I believe there is something there.
Yeah, can I just can I just go back to the weapon as well?
Yeah,
Now,
yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's a huge gun. It's a huge shotgun.
Yes.
And now I don't know how long Kurt's arms are, but I don't know anyone who could be able to hold the barrel to their mouth and reach the trigger effectively. I think that I think that would be a bit of a stretch, but I think with all of the forensics technologies that we have available now, I mean, should this have happened to Kurt in this century, I think it's pretty apparent that a more thorough investigation would have been conducted.
Absolutely.
And a lot more scrutiny, with DNA evidence, with chemical analysis, fingerprint analysis.
Yeah.
I mean, the things we can do now, we can recreate a crime scene in 3-dimensional space and replicate that on a computer and analyze so much, especially with gunshot residue.
Sure.
I'm pretty sure even with that kind of a shotgun, there would be gunshot residue on his hands.
Yeah.
But that's maybe that. I know I'm trying to be Mr. Objective, but I just find it highly unlikely that that he could have staged that crime scene. Sorry, not staged it, but set it up the way it was, and effectively unalived himself. And it seems like such a travesty, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
That it wasn't investigated as thoroughly as it should have been. So sorry, right back to you.
Okay. What I pulled up here on the screen, that is the note. What your guys was looking at is the note that they found in the greenhouse.
Can you zoom in a bit more on that?
Sure, absolutely. There's no problem at all. Let me go back here. And I'm going to read it.
You see, if you'd have sent me this, I could have transcribed. I could have not transcribed it. What's the word I'm looking for? Kind of typed it out, so you could be reading it.
Yeah, no, I do have a typed out copy. I do, but I do have a typed copy. But I did want to bring up before I started reading it. I did want to show this particular section of the note. Does anything stand out to anybody? Just not necessarily what's written there, because we're going to talk about that. But is there anything that you guys see that stands out to you when you physically just look at the note right in this general area? Does anybody see anything that?
Okay, I can't see your cursor again, so I don't know where you're.
I'm sorry.
Where you're referring to. Again.
In this area right here, does anything physically changed when you read it? Does anything pop up in your all's minds as something out of the ordinary here?
Right. 1 second. Let me just.
Sure. Not necessarily content. Just if you were just to kind of just glance down at Is there anything that's standing out to you from?
Yeah, the handwriting's different.
There you go. There you go. The handwriting and the formatting of the letter is different.
Yeah,
There you go. Just a look at it, you'll see that he's writing, he's getting out these very emotional letters. But about right here, all of a sudden, the format and the handwriting changes. Now, call it what you will. What obviously that's super emotional. Obviously, he has a lot going on. But if you try to break these letters down individually and go back up into this letter, you really can't. I mean, that F right there in the word fool, you have the F right here. That's
yes.
very little, but I mean, it looks like the top part of this letter was written by somebody, and the second
And that
bit
last part was added later.
it looks like it was absolutely someone else. But to read the letter, he addresses it to a Buddha, which is his imaginary friend as a kid. The letter reads, speaking from the tongue of an experienced simpleton who obviously would rather be an emasculated, infantile complainee, this note should be pretty easy to understand. All the warnings from Punk Rock 101 courses over the years, since my first introduction to the, shall we say, ethics involved with independence and the embracement of your community, has proven to be very true. I haven't felt the excitement of listening to as well as creating music along with reading and writing for too many years now. I feel guilty beyond words that these things, for example, when we're backstage and the lights go out and the manic roar of the crowd begins, it doesn't affect me the way in which it did for Freddie Mercury, who seemed to relish in the love and admiration of the crowd, which is something I totally admire and envy. The fact is, I can't fool you, any one of you. It simply isn't fair to you or me. The worst crime I can think of would be to rip people off by faking it and pretending as if I'm having 100% fun. Sometimes I feel as if I should have a punch in time clock before I walk out on stage. I've tried everything within my power to appreciate it, and I do. God, believe me, I do. But it's not enough. I appreciate the fact that I and we have affected and entertained a lot of people. It must be one of those narcissists who only appreciate things once they're gone. I'm too sensitive. I need to be slightly numb in order to regain the enthusiasm I once had as a child. On our last three tours, I've had a much better appreciation for all the people I've known personally as excuse me, and as fans of our music, but I still can't get over the frustration, the guilt, and the empathy I have for everyone. There's good in all of us, and I think I simply love people too much. So much that it makes me feel too fucking sad. The sad little sensitive, unappreciated Pisces. Jesus, man, why don't you just enjoy it? I don't know. I have a goddess of a wife who sweats ambition and empathy, and a daughter who reminds me too much of what I used to be, full of love and joy, kissing every person she meets because everyone is good and will do her no harm. And that terrifies me to the point where I can barely function. I can't stand the thought of Francis becoming the miserable, self destructive death rocker that I've become. I have it good, very good, and I'm grateful. But since the age of 7, I've become hateful toward all humans in general, only because it seems so easy for people to get along that have empathy, only because I love and feel sorry for people too much, I guess. Thank you from the pit of my burning, nauseous stomach for your letters and concern during the past years. I'm too much of an erratic, moody baby. I don't, excuse me, I don't have the passion anymore. And so remember, it's better to burn out than to fade away. Peace, love, empathy. Kurt, Co- Kurt Cobain, Francis, and Courtney. Excuse me, Kurt Cobain. And then it goes dash Francis and Courtney. I will be at your altar. Please keep going, Courtney, for Francis, for her life, which will be so much happier without me. I love you. I love you. Now, the thing about it is, once we get to the part where it says, Francis and Courtney, I'll be at your altar. And then after that, please keep going, Courtney, for Francis. For her life will be so much happier without me. That's the only mention in that letter to me that sounds suicidal. Now, if you guys heard something else in it that I'm not pulling out, to me, I hate to sound like those tinfoil hat people, but to me, when I hear that, I hear a man who is saying, I'm about to make a big change in my career. I'm going to stop the Nirvana thing, and I'm going to try something else because I'm not happy doing this. I'm tired of faking it. But then at the very end, those last 3 lines, that's the only part I see. They'll be so much happier without me. That's the only suicidal part of this note that I can pull out.
Do you know? I mean, from that first part of the letter, where he's writing it to his imaginary childhood friend, and I suspect he's also writing that letter to his self as the being the child.
Yeah.
And it I don't glean any kind of unaliving intentions from that. It sounds very heartfelt and genuine, and it strikes me as more of an apology.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, like he's either saying sorry to the child he was for not being
Yep.
the man he should be, or
Ooh, I have not thought of it like that.
well, it's just. I mean, I was listening to you read it, and I was just imagining, you know, what I would be feeling or what I would be thinking in that moment, writing those exact words, and uh, I can only glean from that it's a it's like he's talking to his past self, saying, I'm sorry, I'm not the man that you wanted to be,
Yeah.
and I'm sorry to all the people who see me as the man that they want me to be. It doesn't scream out, I'm going to end it, until that very last part about,
Yeah.
um you know I am at your altar, um and just, I mean, what really stood out as well, that very last part of that note, the whole I love you, was how frantic, and it was very sort of, I better write this quickly so it looks like, it's more emphasized on trying
Oh
to
yeah.
make it appear suicidal. But yeah, I mean, in that moment, I'm just, I can almost channel what that man must have been feeling when he wrote that. Um, it's just very. There's a lot of emotion in there, um, and it's a cry for help.
Yeah.
And I guess for someone like Kurt, when you're surrounded by sycophants and these kind of like money grabbing, oh, if you do this show, if you do this tour, if you do this concert, it's this much money and blah blah blah, and when you've got parasitical sycophants, you're kind of just going along for the ride. You're not really in the moment.
Yeah.
um, and given, I don't know, I'm feeling very conflicted right now,
Yeah.
to put it
Absolutely.
to put it bluntly.
And so we are at the 120 mark, and I think everybody's sort of dispersed around. So I think this would be a good place to put a bookmarker in, and then finish the other hour or so up tomorrow if you're down for it.
Yeah, I would be really, really happy to go ahead and do that. But if I can make one small request, if you can
Please.
send me some information as well that you
Okay.
have, so I can at least be a little bit more informed about the subject.
I'm sorry. Yes, yes. I will do better about that. And another thing is now that we're sort of wrapping tonight's up, yeah. Well, I'll message you about some other things, but I think upcoming in the next little bit, we're going to have some pretty entertaining stuff. But we'll pick up tomorrow with what I've got here up on screen, which is the Courtney Love left a bag at the her attorney's home, and when the lady looked through it, she found this, which is a practice handwriting sheet that Courtney had, where she was trying to practice Kurt's handwriting.
Interesting.
Yeah, coming off of the suicide note, and then looking at those last 3 lines on there, obviously the handwriting definitely was off, but then this was discovered. So I think that would be a good place to pick up from tomorrow.
Yeah. Okay.
Good deal.
So, well, obviously we've covered a lot of topics this evening. So, if there are those of you who joined us halfway through, please do feel free to watch from the beginning. I think it's a pity we're not doing this as an actual podcast. We could have cut that bit out and then re-uploaded that as our outtakes. But
yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, but I want to extend a huge thank you to you for inviting me up on your show.
Thank you. I send the same thing back to you. I really appreciate it.
Oh well, thank you very much. I can feel the love from here, and I'll drop my Cash App in the description. So feel free to show the love.
Absolutely.
But everyone who joined us in chat, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to see you all again, and we look forward to seeing you for part 2.
All right. Thanks, guys. Man, thank you so much for doing this with me, man. I really appreciate it. Definitely want to say that, and I look forward to the next one. As
do I. And I promise the next time I'll be a little bit more informed.
Yeah, that's my bad. Yeah, I'll do better. I will do better.
It's not all on you. It's I was a bit lax in the research, but I'll do better. I'll do better as well. Thanks,
All right. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, everybody. Everybody have a great Friday evening, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Have fun, guys. Peace out.